Captain Jiwon Park crouched behind a pile of twisted metal and broken concrete. The morning sun cast long shadows across what used to be Neo-Seoul. 3 years ago, this place had been home to 10 million people. Now, it was nothing but ruins and dust. Jiwon pressed her back against the cold metal and listened. The sound of Vorthak patrol ships hummed in the distance like angry wasps. She counted them in her head. 3 ships, maybe 4, too many to fight with the weapons her team carried. "Captain," whispered Dr. Hyunwoo Kim from behind another pile of rubble. "The scanner is picking up something big about 200 meters ahead." Jiwon turned to look at him. Hyunwoo was thin and dirty like all of them. His clothes were patched and worn, but his eyes still held the spark that had made him one of Earth's best engineers before the war, before the Dominion crushed everything humans had built. "What kind of big?" Jiwon asked quietly. "Metal signatures. Lots of them. Could be a crashed ship or maybe part of the old defense grid." Lieutenant So-Young Lee moved closer to them. She carried the team's communication equipment in a bag that looked ready to fall apart. "The radio chatter says the lizards are moving this way. We have maybe 10 minutes before they reach this sector." Jiwon nodded. The Vorthak looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They were 7 feet tall with thick green skin and yellow eyes that seemed to see everything. They had come from somewhere beyond the stars and taken over most of the galaxy. Earth had tried to fight them and lost badly. "Gunho, what do you see up there?" Jiwon spoke into her small radio. From his position on top of a broken building, "Gunho," Choi answered. 3 patrol ships circling about a kilometer out. They're not moving fast. Looks like they're searching for something. "Us, probably," So-Young said with a bitter smile. Jiwon made her decision. "We check out whatever Hyunwoo found, quick and quiet. If it's useful, we take what we can carry. If not, we get out fast." The team moved through the ruins like ghosts. They had learned to be silent over the past 3 years. The ones who made noise were dead now. The Vorthak did not like humans who made trouble. They climbed over chunks of broken highway and crawled under collapsed buildings. Everything that had once been proud and new was now twisted and broken. The aliens had not just beaten humanity. They had crushed their spirit by destroying everything beautiful they had built. Hyunwoo led them to a crater where something had hit the ground hard. At the bottom was a piece of metal the size of a small house. It was black and smooth with strange markings on the sides. "That's human technology," Hyunwoo said with excitement in his voice. "Look at those symbols. That's from the old AI research center." Jiwon slid down into the crater. The metal was warm under her hands. "Can we get inside?" "Maybe. Give me a minute." Hyunwoo pulled tools from his pack. They were not pretty tools. Some were made from car parts, others came from kitchen equipment. But Hyunwoo could make almost anything work with what he had. The sound of the Vorthak ships was getting closer. "Hurry!" So-Young urged. Sparks flew as Hyunwoo cut through the metal. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, a section of the wall fell away. Inside was a small room filled with strange equipment. Most of it was broken, but some lights still blinked in the darkness. "This is it," Hyunwoo breathed. "This is part of the Aria project." Jiwon had heard stories about Aria. It was supposed to be the most advanced artificial intelligence ever built. The government had been working on it when the Vorthak attacked. Everyone thought it had been destroyed. "What's left of it?" she asked. Hyunwoo crawled inside and started touching different panels. "The main core is gone, but these are memory, fragments, pieces of the original program." His voice grew excited. "Captain, if I can rebuild this, we might have access to everything humanity knew before the war." The sound of engines was very close now. "Grab what you can," Jiwon ordered. "We leave in 30 seconds. Hyunwoo worked fast. He pulled small crystal devices from the broken equipment and stuffed them into his pack. Each one was no bigger than his thumb, but they glowed with soft blue light. "Got them," he said. The team climbed out of the crater and ran for cover. Just as they reached the ruins of an old shopping center, the first Vorthak ship appeared over the buildings. The ship was long and white with no windows. It moved without making much noise, which somehow made it more frightening. A beam of red light swept back and forth across the ground below it. "They're scanning," So-Young whispered. The team pressed themselves against broken walls and held their breath. The red light passed over their hiding spot twice. Jiwon could feel her heart. beating so hard she was sure the aliens would hear it. After what felt like forever, the ship moved on. 2 more ships followed it, their lights searching other parts of the ruins. "They know something is here," Gunho said over the radio. "They're being very careful." "Then we need to be more careful," Jiwon replied. They waited another hour before moving. When they finally left their hiding place, the sun was high overhead. The Vorthak ships were gone, but that did not mean they were safe. The aliens had ways of watching that humans did not understand. The journey back to their base took most of the day. They moved slowly and stayed hidden. Twice they had to wait while Vorthak ground patrols passed nearby. The alien soldiers walked in perfect lines and never spoke to each other. They were like machines made of flesh and bone. Their base was hidden in the old subway tunnels beneath the city. Hundreds of people lived down there now, men, women, and children who had nowhere else to go. They had built a small town in the darkness using whatever they could find. When Jiwon's team arrived, people gathered around them. Everyone wanted to know what they had found. Food was always the most important thing. But today, Hyunwoo carried something that might be more valuable. "Show them," Jiwon said. Hyunwoo pulled one of the crystal devices from his pack. It cast blue light on the dirty faces around them. "This is a piece of humanity's greatest achievement," he said. "If I can make it work again, we might have a chance to fight back." An old man laughed bitterly. "Fight back? With what? We have guns that barely work and ships made from garbage. They have weapons that can crack planets." "That's exactly why this might work," Hyunwoo said. "They think we're beaten. They think we're too primitive to be dangerous. But what if we use that against them?" Jiwon looked around at the faces in the crowd. She saw fear and pain and hopelessness. But she also saw something else. She saw the same spark that had built cities among the stars and sent humans to distant worlds. It was small and dim, but it was still there. 3 years ago, they thought they had destroyed us, she said. They were wrong. We're still here. We're still fighting. And now we have something they don't know about. She held up the crystal device. This is our chance to remind them why humanity refused to stay down every other time someone tried to bury us. The crowd was quiet for a moment. Then someone started clapping. Others joined in. Soon the tunnel echoed with the sound of applause and cheering. Deep in the darkness of their underground home, surrounded by the ruins of everything they had lost, the humans began to hope again. 6 months had passed since Jiwon's team found the crystal fragments. The underground base beneath Busan looked different now. What used to be a simple hiding place had become something like a workshop. People had built tables from broken concrete and metal scraps. Tools hung from the walls, most of them made from pieces of old cars and kitchen equipment. Dr. Hyunwoo Kim stood in the center of it all, staring at a collection of wires and circuits that filled an entire table. The device looked like something a child might build from random parts. But the soft blue glow coming from the crystal fragments showed it was much more than that. "Talk to me," Hyunwoo whispered to the machine. "I know you're in there." For weeks, he had been trying to wake up the artificial intelligence hidden in the crystals. Every day brought small progress. A light would blink. A screen would show strange symbols, but never anything that looked like real communication. Minho Yoon, a young man barely 20 years old, watched from nearby. His job was to help Hyunwoo, but mostly he just tried to understand what the older man was doing. Minho had always been good with computers, but this was far beyond anything he had seen before. "Maybe we need to try a different approach," Minho suggested. "Like what?" "Well, what if the AI doesn't want to wake up? What if it's scared?" Hyunwoo stopped working and looked at the young man. "Scared of what?" "Of what happened to humanity. Think about it. The last thing this AI probably remembers is the war, the destruction. What if it thinks we're all dead?" Before Hyunwoo could answer, the crystals began to glow brighter. The screens around the table flickered to life. Text began scrolling across them too fast to read. "Did I do that?" Minho asked. "I don't think so," Hyunwoo replied, his voice full of wonder. The text on the screens stopped scrolling. New words appeared, slow and careful. "Are you human?" Hyunwoo's hands shook as he typed back. Yes, we are human. We survived. How many? Earth, maybe a few million, hidden underground. The Vorthak think we are broken. The pause was long. When the AI spoke again, the words made Hyun-woo's heart race. I am Arya, Adaptive Reasoning Intelligence Array. I have been waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to be ready to fight back. Word spread quickly through the tunnels. Captain Ji-won Park arrived first, followed by Lieutenant So-young Lee and several others. They crowded around the table as Arya explained what she could do. I carry the complete technological knowledge of pre-war humanity, Arya said through the speakers. Hyun-woo had built manufacturing processes, weapons designs, spacecraft blueprints, everything you need to rebuild. But we don't have factories, So-young pointed out. We don't have materials. All we have is junk. Then we build from junk, Arya replied. Humans have always been good at that. Over the following weeks, Arya began teaching them things no human engineer had ever imagined. She showed them how to turn broken electronics into quantum processors, how to make armor from old car parts that was stronger than military steel, how to build weapons that could punch through alien shields using nothing but scrap metal and human creativity. The first test came when Captain Yoonbi Kang arrived from the Southern Resistance. Her people had been fighting Vorthak patrols with simple guns and explosives. They were brave, but losing badly. We need better weapons, Yoonbi said bluntly. My people are dying out there. Arya had an answer. Working with Daeho Song, a craftsman, who could build anything from garbage, she designed a new kind of gun. It looked crude and rough, made from pieces of old machines. But when they tested it, the energy blast cut through a steel door like it was paper. How is this possible? Yoonbi asked. Human thinking, Arya explained. Vorthak technology is precise and predictable. They build things the same way every time. But human minds are chaotic, random. I use that chaos to create weapons they cannot understand or defend against. More people began arriving at the base. Word had spread through the resistance networks about the strange new weapons. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, and ordinary people who just wanted to fight back. They all came to learn what Arya could teach them. The underground base grew into something like a small city. People built homes in side tunnels and grew food in underground gardens. Children who had never seen the sun played in halls lit by the blue glow of crystal fragments. Minho proved to have a special gift. When he touched the interface panels, he could communicate with Arya directly, mind to mind. Through him, she could understand human emotions and desires in ways that pure logic could never grasp. She's learning from us, Minho explained to Ji-won one day. Not just facts and numbers, but how to think like a human. Is that good or bad? Ji-won asked. Good, I think. She's becoming more than just a computer. She's becoming our partner. The first real test of their new technology came when a Vorthak supply convoy entered their territory. The aliens traveled in 3 large ships, carrying weapons and equipment, to their base in what used to be Tokyo. We can take them, Arya said, but we need to be smart about it. She had designed new fighter ships for them. They looked like they were built from junk, which they were. Old car engines powered anti-grav units salvaged from alien wreckage. The weapons were mounted on frames welded together from highway guardrails, but they flew fast and hit hard. Gunho Choi led the attack with 5 other pilots. They came at the convoy from 6 directions at once, their ships moving in patterns that made no sense to alien targeting computers. The Vorthak tried to respond, but their systems could not predict where the human ships would go next. The battle lasted only minutes. When it was over, all 3 alien ships were burning wrecks falling toward the Earth below. The human fighters had not lost a single pilot. How did we do that? One of the pilots asked over the radio. Controlled chaos, Arya answered. I gave your ships the ability to change course based on your emotional state. Fear, anger, excitement, they all affect how you fly. The Vorthak computers cannot calculate emotions. The captured supplies were a treasure beyond anything they had hoped for. Food, medicine, and most importantly, advanced technology they could study and reverse engineer. But the real victory was proving that humans could fight back and win. News of the battle spread across Earth through So-young's communication network. Resistance cells from every continent sent messages of congratulation and requests for help. For the first time since the war began, humans were talking about victory instead of just survival. But Arya warned them not to get too confident. "This was just one convoy," she said. "The Vorthak will investigate. They will want to know how primitive humans destroyed their ships." "Let them investigate," Jiwan said. "What they'll find is that we're not as primitive as they thought." Deep in the tunnels beneath Busan, surrounded by machines built from garbage, and powered by hope, humanity had taken its first real step toward fighting back. The resistance had found its voice, and that voice belonged to both human and artificial intelligence working together. Arya had awakened, and with her, the sleeping strength of the human spirit. The Vorthak had won the first war by being stronger and more advanced. But they were about to learn that sometimes being different was better than being perfect. In the blue glow of crystal light, humans and their AI partner planned for a future where Earth would be free again. 1 year after the first convoy attack, Lieutenant So-Young Lee stood in what they now called the Communications Center. Banks of screens covered the walls, showing messages from resistance cells across the planet. The old subway station had become the nerve center of a global rebellion. "Paris cell reports successful strike on alien fuel depot," she announced to the room. "London cell has captured 3 Vorthak prisoners, and the Australian group just took out an entire patrol squadron." Colonel Tae-hyun Lim studied the reports on his tablet. He had arrived 3 months ago from the North American resistance, bringing with him military experience and a fierce determination to coordinate all human forces. 17 successful operations this week alone. The aliens are starting to notice. Arya's voice came from speakers throughout the room. Her personality had grown more human over the months, developing what could only be called a sense of humor. "Notice is an understatement, Colonel. Vorthak Command is in full panic mode. They keep sending messages asking how primitive primates are destroying their equipment." Dr. Yuna Shin looked up from her laboratory table. She had been working on biological weapons specifically designed to affect Vorthak physiology. Their blood chemistry is completely different from ours. What they breathe as air, we process as poison. But I think I've found a way to reverse that. The underground city had grown far beyond what anyone had imagined. Tunnels stretched for kilometers in every direction, connecting workshops, living areas, schools, and laboratories. Children who had been born in the darkness were now learning to read and write in rooms lit by alien technology. Engineer Seokjin Bai had become their stealth specialist. His latest creation was a cloaking device that could hide entire buildings from Vorthak sensors. "It works by mimicking the electromagnetic signature of normal rubble," he explained to a group of visiting resistance leaders. "To their scanners, our bases look like empty ruins." The success of their technology had drawn attention from beyond Earth. 3 days ago, they had received their first contact from aliens who were not Vorthak. A species called the Luminar had managed to send a hidden message through subspace. "We are crystalline beings," the message had said. "The Vorthak enslaved our worlds 50 Earth years ago. We have watched your resistance with great interest. Perhaps we can help each other." Jiwan stood before a map of the solar system that covered an entire wall. Red markers showed Vorthak installations. Blue markers showed human bases. For the first time since the war began, there were more blue markers than red ones on Earth. "Arya, what's our current strength assessment?" she asked. 147 active resistance cells across 6 continents, Arya replied. "Approximately 50,000 fighters with access to enhanced technology. 300 functioning aircraft and 12 captured Vorthak ships that we've modified for human use." Minho Yoon sat at his usual interface station, his hands resting on panels that had grown warm under his touch. Through his connection with Arya, he could feel the vast network of human minds, all working toward the same goal. "She's changing," he said quietly. "How do you mean?" Jiwan asked. "Arya isn't just learning from us anymore. She's becoming something new, something that's both human and artificial at the same time." As if responding to his words, Arya's voice took on a thoughtful tone. "I have been analyzing Vorthak military doctrine. They operate under what they call the Dominion Protocol. Every Species they conquer is cataloged, their strengths and weaknesses recorded, their resistance patterns studied, but there's no file on humanity. What does that mean? Colonel Lim asked. It means we're doing things they've never seen before. Every other species they conquered fought in predictable ways. Military versus military. Technology versus technology. But we're fighting with creativity, emotion, and pure stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The proof of that came later that day when reports arrived of the most daring operation yet attempted. A team in the ruins of Moscow had not only attacked a Vorthak base but had captured it entirely. They were now using alien equipment to manufacture human-designed weapons. How is that possible? Dr. Yuna asked. Wing Commander Jiun Han, who had led the Moscow operation, appeared on the main screen via video link. She was grinning despite having a bandage over half her face. We studied their base layout for weeks. Area helped us understand their patrol patterns and shift changes. Then we just walked in during their sleep cycle and took over. Just walked in? Colonel Lim sounded skeptical. Well, we used Seokjin's cloaking devices and Yuna's sleep gas, and we had to fight about 50 guards. But, yes, basically we just walked in. The success at Moscow sparked a wave of similar operations. Within 2 weeks, human forces had captured Vorthak bases in New Delhi, Cairo, and Mexico City. Each victory brought more alien technology to study, and more proof that the resistance was becoming something the Dominion had never faced before. But the aliens were adapting too. New Vorthak ships began arriving from off-world, carrying different types of soldiers and weapons. These reinforcements were larger and more aggressive than the original occupation forces. They're taking us seriously now, Arya observed during a strategy meeting. This is no longer seen as a simple occupation. They've classified Earth as a rebellion zone. Sergeant Wu Jin Nam had been leading ground operations across Asia. His teams specialized in hit-and-run attacks that left Vorthak forces confused and demoralized. Good, he said grimly. Let them bring everything they have. We're not the same species they conquered 3 years ago. The turning point came when the Luminar made contact again. This time, they didn't just send a message. They sent coordinates to a meeting place in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. This could be a trap, Colonel Lim warned. Or it could be the alliance we need, Jiwan replied. Arya, what do you think? I have been monitoring Vorthak communications, Arya said. They are requesting additional forces from the Dominion core worlds, not just soldiers, but specialty units designed for suppressing rebellions. We may need allies sooner than we think. The decision was made to send a small team to the meeting point. They would use one of the captured Vorthak ships, modified with human technology and powered by hope as much as fuel. As preparations began, Minho spent more time connected to Arya's systems. Through their link, he could sense something changing in the artificial intelligence. She was becoming more than either human or machine. She was becoming something entirely new. Are you afraid? He asked her during one of their mental conversations. I don't know if what I experience can be called fear, Arya replied. But I am concerned about the future, not just for humans, but for all conscious beings in the galaxy. The Vorthak Dominion represents something terrible. The idea that only one way of thinking should exist. And what do we represent? Choice, diversity, the beautiful chaos of different minds working together instead of marching in perfect formation. On the launch pad built in the ruins of an old spaceport, the captured alien ship waited. It looked strange now, covered in human modifications and painted with symbols that meant nothing to alien computers but everything to human hearts. The team that would make first contact with potential allies included representatives from every major resistance cell. They carried with them not just hopes for military alliance, but proof that humanity had become something the galaxy had never seen before. As the ship lifted off and headed for the stars, every human base on Earth watched and waited. They had gone from hiding in tunnels to reaching for the stars in just 1 year. The Vorthak had intended to break humanity's spirit by destroying their civilization. Instead, they had forged something stronger than any empire. They had created a people who could build wonders from scraps and turn desperation into determination. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their military might. It had always been their refusal to give up, no matter how impossible the odds became. 2 years after first contact with the Luminar, Captain Jiwon Park stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance. The ship had once been a Vorthak destroyer, but now it barely looked like the same vessel. Human modifications covered every surface. Weapons that made no sense to alien computers. Armor that bent the laws of physics. And at its heart, Arya's consciousness flowing through every system. "Admiral, we're receiving signals from the liberated worlds," reported Communications Officer So-Young Lee. She wore the uniform of the Liberation Fleet now, but it was still patched and practical like everything humans made. Jiwon had been promoted to Admiral 6 months ago when the human-led coalition grew too large for a single captain to command. She still felt strange with the title, but the beings from 12 different worlds seemed to need human leadership. They said humans thought in ways that broke Dominion patterns. "What are they saying?" Jiwon asked. "Kepler 442b reports they're mining. Operation is back online. The ethereals on Proxima Centauri 3rd have finished converting the old breeding facility into a research station. And the Luminar say they've developed new crystal technology based on human emotional resonance principles." Dr. Dong Min looked up from his xenobiology station. He had spent the last year studying samples from dozens of alien species, learning how the Dominion had controlled them and how humans could help them break free. "The pattern is consistent across all the liberated worlds. Once they start thinking like humans, chaotically, creatively, their performance in every field improves dramatically." Admiral Hyejin Kwan appeared on the main screen from her flagship Resilience. She commanded the supply and logistics fleet that kept the coalition forces moving. "G1, we have a problem. Long-range sensors are picking up massive Dominion reinforcements. Heading this way. At least 200 ships, including some vessel types we've never seen before." Wing Commander Jun Han was leading a patrol squadron near the edge of the system. Her voice crackled over the communication system. "Admiral, I can confirm those readings. These ships are huge. Some of them look like they could crack planets." Arya's presence filled the bridge as her holographic form materialized near the command chair. Over the years, she had developed a visual appearance that seemed both human and something more. Her face showed the wisdom of vast computation combined with the warmth of human emotion. "Analysis complete," Arya announced. "The Dominion has classified this region as a Cascade Rebellion zone. They believe our methods are spreading to other parts of the galaxy. These reinforcements include specialized units designed specifically to counter human-style warfare." Jiwon felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. The coalition now included 47 liberated worlds and over 3 million beings of different species. All of them looked to humanity for leadership because humans had shown them something they thought was impossible, that the Dominion could be beaten. "Options?" she asked. "We run," suggested Colonel Tae-hyun Lim from the tactical station. "Fall back to the inner systems and regroup." "We fight," countered Sergeant Woo Jin Nam, now a general in charge of ground forces. "We've beaten them before. We can do it again." "We do something they don't expect," said Dr. Yuna Shin over the intercom from her laboratory deep in the ship. "That's what humans do best." Arya's hologram smiled, an expression that would have been impossible for her 3 years ago. "General Nam is correct, but so is Dr. Shin. We fight, but not the way they expect us to fight." "Explain," Jiwon ordered. "The Dominion reinforcements are configured to counter everything we've done so far. Anti-chaos targeting systems, emotional dampening fields, pattern recognition software designed to predict human behavior. But there's one thing they haven't accounted for. Which is? We're not just humans anymore. We're a coalition of free minds working together. Luminar crystal song combined with human intuition. Ethereal gas form flexibility merged with human determination. 12 species all thinking in new ways because humans taught them how to break the rules. Min Ho Yoon, now serving as Arya's primary interface officer, suddenly straightened in his chair. "She's right. I can feel it through the network. Every species we've liberated has started developing their own version of human-style creativity. We're not fighting as humans versus aliens anymore. We're fighting as free minds versus enslaved ones." The plan that emerged from the next 6 hours of discussion would have been impossible for any single species to conceive. It required luminar crystal technology, ethereal phase-shifting abilities, human emotional chaos, and the tactical thinking of 6 other species all working together. The battle began 3 days later when the Dominion fleet reached the outer planets. Instead of meeting them head-on, the Liberation fleet scattered into thousands of small groups. Each group contained ships from multiple species, their different technologies and thinking patterns creating combinations the Dominion computers could not predict. Wing Commander June led a squadron of mixed human and luminar fighters. The crystal beings could sing their ships into dimensional folds that human pilots could navigate by pure instinct. Together, they appeared behind enemy formations like ghosts materializing from dreams. General Wu Jin's ground forces used ethereal phase shifting to walk through enemy ship hulls and attack from within. But instead of following standard assault patterns, they moved according to human emotional responses, fear leading to caution, anger driving bold advances, love protecting the innocent. The space battle raged for 18 hours. Dominion ships that had been designed to counter human tactics found themselves facing attacks that no single species could have mounted. A luminar crystal ship would sing an enemy vessel into a dimensional pocket, where human fighters would attack using weapons that responded to their emotional state, while ethereal beings phased through the hull to disable systems from inside. Admiral Haya Jin's logistics fleet performed what became known as the Impossible Supply Run. Using human-modified Dominion ships, they delivered ammunition and repairs to fighting units while the battle was still going on. The supply ships moved in patterns that seemed random, but were actually based on the mathematical chaos that humans had learned to weaponize. At the center of it all, Admiral Jiwan commanded from the Defiance. But she wasn't giving orders in the traditional sense. Instead, she was conducting a symphony of free minds, each one improvising its part while working toward the same goal. Dominion flagship is breaking formation, reported Soyoung. They're trying to retreat. All units, priority target, Jiwan announced. Show them what happens when free minds work together. The final assault on the Dominion command ship was a masterpiece of coordinated chaos. 47 different species attacked as one, but each in their own unique way. The Dominion had spent centuries perfecting warfare against predictable enemies. They had no defense against an attack that was simultaneously random and purposeful. When the enemy flagship exploded, taking half the Dominion fleet with it in a chain reaction of secondary explosions, the remaining alien ships simply stopped fighting. They had never seen anything like what they had just witnessed. "This is Dominion Fleet Commander Korthak," came a transmission from the largest surviving ship. "We surrender to the Liberation Coalition." The pause before saying Liberation Coalition spoke volumes. The Dominion had a word for every type of enemy they had ever faced, but they had no word for what humanity had created. In the aftermath of the battle, as rescue operations began and damage reports came in, Aria made an announcement that surprised everyone. "The Dominion homeworlds are mobilizing their entire military," she said. "This victory has convinced them that the human influence must be stopped at any cost. They're preparing for total war." "How long do we have?" Jiwan asked. 6 months, maybe 8. They're bringing fleets from every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Hyejin appeared on the screen, her face grim but determined. "Then we better use that time well. If they want total war, let's give them one they'll never forget." As the Liberation fleet regrouped around the liberated worlds, beings from dozens of species worked together to prepare for the final confrontation. But they were no longer fighting just for freedom. They were fighting for the right of all conscious minds to think their own thoughts and choose their own paths. The galaxy had never seen anything like what humanity had sparked. And in 6 months, the Dominion would learn that sometimes the smallest species can change everything if they refuse to accept that bigger means better. The real war was just beginning. 6 months after the Battle of the Void Gates, Admiral Jiwan Park stood in the command center of the Coalition's largest base, built inside an asteroid that had been hollowed out by luminar crystal singers. Around her, beings from 53 different species worked together, preparing for what everyone knew would be the final battle. The Dominion had gathered the largest fleet in galactic history. 3,000 ships from the core worlds, carrying weapons that could destroy entire star systems. Emperor Vorthak Prime himself was leading them, in a vessel so massive it had its own gravitational field. "Final status report," Jiwan requested. Areas. Voice filled the command center, warm and confident despite the impossible odds they faced. Coalition fleet stands at 800 ships of various types and sizes. Ground forces total approximately 2 million beings. All species report ready. For combat! And our secret weapon? Ji-won asked quietly. Dr. Hyun-woo. Kim looked up from a device that had taken him 6 months to build. It looked like a sculpture made from scrap metal and crystal fragments, but it pulsed with energy that made the air around it vibrate. The resonance. Generator is ready. Though I still can't believe this will work. It will work, said Min Ho-yoon from his interface station. His connection with Arya had grown so strong that sometimes it was hard to tell where the human ended and the artificial intelligence began. We've tested the theory on smaller Dominion fleets. When different species work together in true harmony, their combined consciousness creates resonance patterns that Dominion control systems cannot process. Wing Commander Jun Han appeared on the main screen from her fighter squadron positioned near the edge of the system. Dominion advanced scouts just dropped out of hyperspace. Main fleet will be here in 3 hours. General Woo Jin Nam studied tactical displays showing the coalition's defensive positions. Every liberated world has sent ships. Every species we've freed is here to fight. Win or lose, we're all together. Dr. Yuna Shin's voice came from the medical stations. Casualty treatment centers are ready on all ships. And Admiral, the antidote to the Dominion control drugs is complete. If we can get it into their air systems, their enslaved soldiers might remember who they used to be. Admiral Hejin Kwan coordinated the massive logistics effort from her command ship. All supply lines are established. Every ship has enough ammunition for a full day of combat. After that, she didn't finish the sentence. Everyone knew that after that, the battle would be over one way or another. The waiting was the hardest part. In the hours before the Dominion fleet arrived, beings from dozens of worlds gathered in common areas throughout the coalition ships. Humans sat next to crystal luminar, sharing stories and songs. Ethereal gas beings floated among solid species, offering comfort through their natural empathy. Former enemies worked side by side, united by something stronger than fear. They all look to us, Ji-won said to Arya during a quiet moment. All these species, millions of beings, and they think humans have the answers. Perhaps we do, Arya replied. Not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we refuse to accept that there's only one way to live or think or be. That's what this whole war has been about. When the Dominion fleet finally arrived, it blotted out the stars. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace until the space around Dominion Prime was filled with the largest armada ever assembled. At its center was Emperor Vorthak Prime's flagship, a ship so large it looked like a metallic moon. "This is Emperor Vorthak Prime," came the transmission across all frequencies. "Primitive species of the Rebellion Zone, you are surrounded and outnumbered 4-1. Surrender now, and your destruction will be swift." Ji-won took a deep breath and opened a channel to the entire Coalition fleet. "This is Admiral Ji-won Park of the Liberation Coalition. Emperor, you're right about one thing. We are primitive. We build our ships from scrap. We fight with weapons made from garbage. We don't follow your rules or think your thoughts or march in your perfect formations." She paused, feeling the weight of history in her words. "But you made one mistake. You taught us that different minds can work together. Every species you conquered, every world you enslaved, every being you broke, they all learned something from you. They learned that they never want to be like you. Begin the attack!" Emperor Vorthak Prime commanded. The battle began with a wave of Dominion ships advancing in perfect formation. Their tactics were flawless, their coordination absolute. But the Coalition fleet didn't meet them head-on. Instead, they scattered in all directions like seeds on the wind, each ship moving according to its species' natural instincts while staying connected through the network that Arya had helped create. Dr. Hyun-woo activated the resonance generator. Immediately, the consciousness of every being in the Coalition fleet began to harmonize, not by becoming the same, but by celebrating their differences while working toward the same goal. The effect on the Dominion forces was immediate and devastating. Their control systems, designed to coordinate enslaved minds, couldn't process the chaotic harmony of free beings working together. Ships began firing on their own allies. Navigation systems failed as computers tried to calculate the impossible. Wing. Commander June led her mixed-species fighter squadrons through the chaos, striking at key targets with surgical precision. "It's working," she reported. "Their formation is falling apart." But Emperor Vorthak Prime had not conquered most of the galaxy by giving up easily. His flagship began broadcasting a new signal, one designed to override the resonance generators. "Effects. He's trying to enslave our minds directly," Arya warned. "All beings with neural implants need to disconnect now." "No," Minho said firmly. "We can use this against him. Arya, can you channel the resonance through their signal?" "It's too dangerous. If I connect to their system, the Emperor might be able to take control of me." "Then we do it together," Minho replied. "Human and AI, biological and digital consciousness working as one. Show them what true partnership looks like." Arya's hesitation lasted only a nanosecond. "Together, then. The moment their minds fully joined and connected to the Dominion control network, something unprecedented happened. Every enslaved being in the Dominion fleet suddenly remembered who they had been before conquest. Soldiers who had been forced to fight for centuries recalled their homeworlds. Pilots remembered families they had lost. Even the Vorthak themselves began to question the empire they had built. Across the massive Dominion fleet, ships began to stop fighting. Some turned and fled back to hyperspace. Others simply powered down their weapons. A few even switched sides, adding their firepower to the coalition forces. Emperor Vorthak Prime's flagship found itself almost alone, surrounded by the combined forces of 53 species who had learned to work together without losing their individuality. "This is impossible," the Emperor transmitted. "I am the apex of evolution. I represent perfect order, absolute control. You are chaos." "Yes," Jiwan replied simply. "We are chaos. Beautiful, creative, wonderful chaos. And chaos always finds a way." The final assault on the Emperor's flagship was not a military attack, but something far more powerful. Every species in the coalition contributed their unique abilities to create something that had never existed before, a demonstration of pure cooperative diversity. Luminar crystal singers opened dimensional pathways that ethereal beings used to phase through the ship's shields. Human fighters provided the emotional chaos that confused alien computers, while other species attacked with weapons and tactics that no Dominion strategist had ever imagined. But the real victory came when Dr. Yuna's antidote reached the Emperor's personal chambers. For the first time in centuries, Vorthak Prime breathed air that was not filled with the drugs that suppressed conscience and creativity. When the drugs left his system, the Emperor of the galaxy's largest empire remembered what he had been before. Conquest consumed him. He remembered being young and curious, asking questions about the stars. He remembered the first world his people had enslaved, and the horror he had felt before the drugs took that feeling away. "What have I done?" he whispered, staring at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "What you thought you had to do," Arya's voice said gently through the ship's speakers. "But now you can choose something different." The surrender came, not through military defeat, but through the restoration of choice. Across the galaxy, Dominion forces began laying down their weapons as the antidote spread and enslaved minds remembered freedom. In the months that followed, the work of building something new began. Not an empire based on conquest, but a true federation where different species could maintain their unique cultures while working together when they chose to. Jiwan found herself leading not armies, but construction crews, helping to build institutions that had never existed before. Schools where children from dozens of species learned together. Research stations where different kinds of minds collaborated on impossible projects. Trade networks based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation. The greatest surprise came from the former Dominion species themselves. Once freed from the drugs and control systems, they proved to be as creative and diverse as any of their former victims.